Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, on this Wednesday, 25th of June 2025. We're here for the Performance Scrutiny Committee partnerships. So first of all, if I can ask, is there any apologies?
Councillor John Jones and Councillor Anna Scrutiny.
That's great, thank you. And we've had apologies from the Cabinet members as well for the topic of discussion. Do we have any apologies from the otherwise in the room, anything like that? No. Perfect, thank you ever so much there. And so we move on to item 2 of the declarations of interest. Do I see any declarations of interest in the room online at all? No, thank you. Apologies, yeah, I'm going to read the script for the next part as well. So this Scrutiny Committee meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside the Council Standing Orders. The Council Standing Orders and Code of Conduct will apply at all times, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. Please, can those attending online switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you're not speaking to ensure that there's no unnecessary background noise. And can I remind members to ensure that the chat function is switched on and to use that facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to do so, and remember to unmute your microphone and switch your camera on. And a recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request, and the images and sound recording may be used for training purposes within the Council. Thank you very much, then. Okay, so before we go on to the next agenda point of Safe in Newport Community Safety Partnership Annual Report 24-25, can I just kindly ask the whoever's obviously presenting both online and in the room, just to say hello, who they are and their job title, if that's okay, for members that may not necessarily know you, if that's okay, if we start with Reece, please.
Yeah, Reece, I'm Director of Corporate Services and Chair of Community Safety Partnership.
Yeah, Johnny's Dent, Policy and Partnership Manager, so I support Community Safety Partnership.
Helen Gordon, Senior Policy and Partnership Officer for Community.
Thank you. And for those online?
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair. Jason White, Gwent Police, Head of Neighbourhood Policing for the Force and Co-Chair of Safe in Newport.
That's great. Thank you very much, everyone. And I believe we have a presentation to start off on there. And can I ask who would be leading that today? Perfect. Yes, thank you.
Through that. So yeah, we're going to. It is a pretty short presentation just to go through the structure, etc. Of say a couple of things about that before we get started and under the legislation. But first of all, just want to start off with the Scrutiny Committee's role. So within the legislation, each local authority in area to apply to have a community safety partnership. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Develop a community safety strategic needs assessment and a plan. That went to council last July. So this is a reporting really on, I suppose, the first 7 months of the implementation of that. So quite a lot of activities being done, assessment data, etc. We'll talk through some of that as we go through. Also, as part of the legislation, is a requirement for each local authority to set a scrutiny committee whose role is to scrutinise the work of the community safety partnership. So that is the partnership scrutiny committee for us. It's an important statutory responsibility. Janice and Helen and Jason have introduced themselves, so we'll go through some of this and we'll obviously give you to answer any questions as we go through. So waiting for the presentation to come on this week. It's sometimes delayed.
Online, just bear with us a second. We're just trying to view something on the screen there. Just bear with us a second.
Nothing's coming through the screen, even to like.
No, we're not presenting the digital.
Hopefully we'll have a fix in a few moments.
That line dancing.
Do you want me to see if I've joined online? Do you want me to see if I can share it from my screen instead?
Yeah, you can try.
Otherwise, we'll if we can't manage to read this, we'll just look it through. It's nothing that's not in the report.
That's for the security. Come on.
You can see it online.
They can online, because when I joined online, I could see it, but I can't see it here.
Can those online see the presentation at all?
Yeah, I can see.
Yes, can.
I can, yeah.
Okay. As I say, is members content that's in the room to hear and those online to follow? Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Okay, I'll assume we're on the second slide.
Yes.
Safe and
Thank
Newport overview, yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks. Okay, so legislation. Let's start off with that. So the legislation, the primary legislation concerning community safety partnerships is the Crime and Disorder Act, UK legislation, which requires each local, as I said, each local authority area to undertake a strategic needs assessment, develop a community safety plan, have a community safety partnership in place, and those requirements then around council and scrutiny sign off. It's really important to say, and I'll talk about some of the partners of it, it isn't a council partnership. The council is one of bodies within it, but the local authority has specific statutory responsibilities around being and monitoring those plans. And we've got some other legislation that we also take into consideration, which is a bit newer. Serious violence DT from 2022. So within our strategic needs assessment, we picked up that assessment as well. And also looks against that. The Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, the 5 ways of wellbeing, we also incorporate the plan. Also for Wales, the Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence Act as well. So that's specifically picked up both in the plan and the operation activity. From a local authority area point of view, obviously we're also delivering that within a policy context with the local authority, and that's our corporate plan as Newport City Council. Police and crime plan from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, so we've got a due regard to that plan. Substance misuse strategy for the Gwent Area Planning Board, and the intervention plans for the police and justice. So myself and Jason jointly chair Safe Newport, the Community Safety Partnership, and I also chair the Youth Justice Board for Newport. Okay. Right. Brief overview of the partnership, so we're all clear. So there are a series, the legislation doesn't justify the local authorities, there are a series of accountable authorities named within the Crime and Disorder Act. Local authorities as well, police services are another, health board, patient service, and fire and rescue services. So for us, that's Gwent Police, Newport City Council, and Iron Health, National Probation Service, and South Wales Fire and Rescue. So 5 statutory responsibilities. So again, whilst the local authority has responsibility around some of the governance arrangements with that, there is a shared accountability across those 5 departments. It's myself and Jason here to answer any questions around that. Police and Crime Commissioners aren't statutory partners within the Act, but there was a review of community safety part, 2-part review of community safety partnership in Wales over the last 2 years, and what that looked at was some of the relationships between Office of Police and Crime Commissioners and community safety partnerships as well. So the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner sits on a partnership. We have due regard to the police and crime plan. Because essentially we're all looking at the same data, we're all planning the sort of things we want to do with the same data. We've got a range of other partners involved in safety partnership as well, third sector, sector bodies. They cover quite the range across Newport. RSL particularly are really key partners. Violence against women, domestic abuse, sexual violence coordinator, substance misuse board. So we make sure we're covering all of those sorts of bases as well. And I previously done the presentation for the committee around counter-terrorism arrangements. We also include within, whilst that's got its own governance arrangement, counter-terrorism is also a community safety issue. So we also include that. As well. I'm handing over to Janice now. For those in the room, it's a very nice diagram of this slide.
Yes, we'll share, obviously, we'll share this, but so Reece mentioned that the plan came to scrutiny last summer, which it did. But alongside the plan, or what helped us inform the plan, was the strategic needs assessment, which also came to scrutiny and then got adopted by Council and Cabinet last summer. So under that, we had a number of objectives and a number of focus areas, one of which being antisocial behaviour, the other being serious and violence crime, sorry, and the other one being vulnerable groups, with a real focus on data, so being evidence driven. So in order to support the achievement of the plan, and there's more details in your pack on page 14 onwards, but we set up a structure to be able to support all of those. So we've got an antisocial behaviour group, we've got a safer places subgroup, we've got a serious violence crime, vulnerable groups, and then we've got the data subgroup. And then some groups underneath those. So as an example, we've got under the kind of vulnerable groups, we've got a specific violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence group. We've got a Gypsy Roma traveller group, and we've got a hate crime group, just looking at all of the different elements that kind of make our elements of our communities more susceptible to crime and more vulnerable to the kind of those kind of things that we're talking about. So they have responsibility for monitoring our delivery plan and making sure that we're having the impact that we wanted to have. So there is a copy in the appendix of the pack of the delivery plan with Q4 updates of actually what have we achieved, you know, over that 12 months, 7 months. The reporting period of this finishes at the end of April, so that's why it was only 7 months rather than 12 months. So we've got within your pack as well, under each of those subgroups, there's some kind of a bit more detail about some of the actual interventions that we've done and what, you know, what those subgroups have actually, what impact they've had within the communities, which is really important from a monitoring perspective as well. The Safer Newport's got the partnership has got kind of two elements to it. It's got a strategic element, which is kind of, you know, the evidence-based kind of where do we need to go in the future? What are we looking at? You know, following the 5 ways of working, where are we looking at in the future? But the partnership and organisations within the partnership have got crucial kind of, you know, responsibilities around addressing emerging needs or responding to immediate needs. So one of the things that we do within the Safer Places subgroup, we've got a number of those. So one is central, one is eastern, one is west. All of those have got problem-solving, focus, control, strategic plans. So they look at, you know, what's happening, what are the objectives, where are the problems, making sure that, you know, that they're people-orientated, that it's got a police in and a partnership response, and there's actions and plans that come out of that. So very much about where is the intelligence from our communities, where's the intelligence from our data, what is actually going to make a difference now as well as in the future. So there's that mixture within the partnership of the emerging and the kind of the more longer term thinking. It's about balancing that sometimes when we come to kind of some of the groups and making sure that we're still having an eye on the future while we're addressing what's happening now. So that monitoring element is really strong from a safer community, from a Safer Newport perspective. There's a really strong partnership. It's been going for a long time now, and people really do challenge each other and making sure their organisations are doing what we said we would do. So Helen's going to go into a bit more about the monitoring element of it.
Yeah, so as Jan's mentioned, they, in terms of the subgroups and things like that, they've got a duty to monitor our delivery plan against what you have previously approved and with the direction we've set. But there's also other parts of monitoring that we're involved in, so some regional pieces of work and some kind of localised of that. So single unified safeguarding review, which is new, and also previously domestic homicide reviews as well. So that's a key function of the Safe Newport partnership. And is mandated that we're involved in those as well. But another thing that we are monitoring, whilst we don't have any kind of centralised funding for community safety, as it were, we do have access to various grants and funding pots. So the subgroups and also the partnership monitor the effective use of those as well. So last financial year, again, there's more detail on this throughout the report and in the appendices 3. Funding last year, so we had OPCC ASB funding, which we supported 7 different projects with that funding across the partnership, and agreed those from the ASB subgroup to happen in Newport and to improve kind of Newport's response to the concerns we've got around antisocial behaviour. And then also we had Home Office, so OP Lumley ASB funding was utilised by internally public protection, but also in partnership with Gwent Police in terms of identifying those hotspot areas and policing those more effectively at key times and on a rotation. And then also Home Office serious violence duty we were able to utilise last year, and that supported the work of the night ambassadors that are operational in Newport on Friday and Saturday nights, in part kind of de-escalating any concerns we might have of serious violence occurring, and they've been really invaluable to also partners, for example, health and the police in terms of their interventions on the streets. So that's been really useful. And a little bit of a kind of look forward really in terms of funding that we've got available to us this year. So we've got the OPCC ASB funding again this year, and part of that work is, a large part of that work is going to really focus on ASB impact assessment that we're going to undertake, which is beyond data. It's not simply just looking at what raw data do we have, because we know that ASB is one of the most underreported crime types that we might experience in the city, but really looking at what impact does antisocial behaviour have on a community, on individuals, so that we can ensure resources meet those needs, not just simply the call out needs. And then the Home Office, again, from ASB point of view, instead of Operation, what was it, Lumley last year, they changed the name of it to Operation Lockwood. And across Newport, I think last year we had about 8 hotspot sites. That's now gone to about 18. Jason will have to correct me on that, and I'm sure he will, which are a bit more specific, but there's more flexibility in that funding for the police to be able to roam a bit more, to respond to need a bit more, which is great. And then Home Office serious violence duty we're going to utilise again, and we're supporting the development of a regional and potentially a Wales-wide knife crime strategy from that, and again the night ambassadors, because we really support their work and the work that they do on the streets at those key times really. So that's kind of the highlights from the annual report that you've got in front of you in your packs. So unless Reece or Jen have got anything else to add, I guess it's time for anyone to ask questions, Jim.
No, thank you. And just to double check, obviously Jason's online. Do you want to comment or Jason, while you're online, it's okay if not, just double checking.
Yeah, no, I concur with the stats that has just been given. So I'll get onto a piece in a minute, but it's an exciting time, I think, for the CSP in all areas in Gwent, but particularly in Newport, just around the commitment the Home Office is making to ASB at the moment, not just around Lockwood that we just discussed, but also around the uplift as part of the neighbour policing guarantee. And I'll talk a little bit, if I may, around the community action team, which we've already seen established within parts of Gwent, including Newport as well.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you very much there. If happy, I'll open up to the committee as well. I will start with yourself, Councillor Peterson, there, please.
Yeah, from the report, I'd like to focus on the survey after 6 months of the restructure. Very positive, and but one thing I did note is that you sent it out with the partners, but you only had a response from 18, which works out about 22.5%. which appears to be a bit low. Is there anything you can do to raise that? But when it comes to scrutiny, we can have more of a view from partners, feedback from it.
I'll probably say something more specific about the question. Yeah, so there are talked about the accountable authorities and those bodies are deeply. Obviously, there are 80 other organisations out there that set out so across those priority areas. There are quite a vast array of partners. What we've got now is a structure that is far more evolving, I think, for some of those partners, and I think it's working progress and successful for quite a lot of that. When police, Newport City Council are, there are a wide range of officers across the local authority and from police's point of view who are involved in most of these groups. The priority it's given across other organisations often isn't the same. I think that would probably be a fair point. The statutory partners obviously play their role as far as the partners is concerned, but I think sometimes the operation activity probably overrides their partnership perspective. I think something like that. But personally, I don't think 21% is particularly bad return on service. We think some of the other service we do, I think that's pretty reasonable. And it's still early days as well. It looks significantly, the partnership structure looks significantly different prior to the new strategic assessment. It's actually what I would say, I wouldn't say this is cheap, but I was cheered before as well. So I think it's far more business-like and it's far more data-oriented, and the plans are in place are far more focused on what the data is saying to us as well. So I think it's a general positive, but engagement, keeping people engaged, I think is a big challenge. Because it's a lot.
There's always at the end of the priority list for it, but also it's like for the committee understanding what the other partnership. So if there is something you can do to try to promote a bit more interaction, I know sometimes it's easy second then, but getting more feedback, I think, is like without the committee just to see how the partnership is working as a whole.
It would be, and that it would be useful, as I said, you would have actually with the statutory partnership, for you to be able to speak to all statutory partners.
The other thing I would answer that is we were, prior to our last Open Newport meeting, we were only at 7 responses. So we did push it again within that meeting, and then we raised to 18. So again, that I would say that most agencies were represented, although not most individuals that participate in various bits of the structure were. But in terms of organisations, it was pretty across the board really in terms of those that are present.
And that as some feedback that might be worth us reflecting in
Just on the back of that, I just wonder within those that responded, was it mainly those strategic partners in terms of the ones that have to because they're mandatory within the system, or do we have more from outside of that, just to know who is actually responding back and what the dynamics are within the responses?
This will be from memory. I probably get the exact agencies for you, but they were mostly statutory, although those approved like authorities that we require. However, that does make up most of our membership, although I believe agencies like Newport did participate as well, so it's a bit of a mix.
You could, if that was a recommendation, we can provide that information.
Yeah.
Yes. Interesting, thank you. If we move on, I know data was being mentioned, so I will bring in Councillor Jewett with a question I believe you had on data.
Yes, it's really pleasing to hear that data is being used. How effectively is it being used? And can you give some specific examples of where data is being used to combat antisocial behaviour in city centre?
Yes, so in terms of, it kind of falls into two parts really within our structure. So the antisocial behaviour subgroup, the data subgroup as well, but also the safer places subgroup. So that central element will utilise various bits of data. So we utilised internally, we've got the ASB strike process that is multi-agency. So we utilise data from that to look at not only patterns and trends, but also individuals. And that is something that is done in partnership with the police, youth service. There's a variety of things there. So we are utilising what we've got, but we are also in a phase where we're building that database up. So our full intention is to utilise that data more and more. The data subgroup, for example, is met twice, but I would say it was very positive response by the right people who are very keen on supplying the right amount of data and what we need. So I'm hoping that that will kind of go from strength to strength, really.
Chair, can I just come in then to answer that question around an example in Newport? So I think it's been well documented, the issues we've had around the Bettis estate, around the shopping centre over the last 6 to 12 months. What the subgroups around safer places has done is that pulling together the stats around what the police have predominantly around ASB plus what the local authority and other partners, and very much it's a problem solving approach around people and places. And what we look at is the victims, the offenders and the location, and then put problem solving plans in place to manage down some of that demand. And you'd have seen a lot of meaningful interventions working with partners such as Newport City Homes, improving the scaffolding and the environment around that, as well as targeting those individuals whilst providing support to others as well. We use the statistics around patrol plans to making sure we got the right people in the right places at the right times. And what we've seen over the series of months is a month-on-month reduction in a lot of that ASB, which essentially proves that what we've got in Newport and around those partnership tasking hubs is clearly working.
Chair, can I quickly jump in there? After
is it on the same point? Is it the same point, Councillor Whitehead?
Yeah, it's actually Jason has preempted me actually, because I don't know whether you can see my chat. I've had to use the chat. I know you don't use chat. My camera will not turn on. It's just not let me turn it on. But going back to what Jason just said about around Bettis, for example, I mean, obviously the partnership work is working there. I had a very pleasant email before he came online, and I was going to mention it. And this is from somebody who used to be city owners. They're obviously heading now. And there was a couple of naughties in the email that had been dealt with, which proves, and as Jason said, the antisocial behaviour, we had a lovely, because we kicked off about, if you remember rightly, in full council about a PSPO, and weirdly it wasn't required because all of a sudden it seemed to settle down, but we did have a bit of a spike. And it's clear that people in the background, the partnerships, have got together, and this fantastic email that I've still got hovering on my desktop suggests that certain individuals have been dealt with. So, and I just think that proves that partnerships have got together and they have dealt with it. I mean, you know, people are not complaining as much, and with that tells you its own story, because it used to be, social media used to be awash with it, and all of a sudden I read it with crossed fingers, and it's been so quiet for so long. Like I say, the other week we had a bit of a spell, but something must have happened regarding people working above us together, and these individuals have been dealt with. I can't believe the pace of it, and it's just, all I can say is that is a great example of what this is all about. So I'd like to thank Jason and like it's heading now for the work that's gone on there, and people will be grateful. You know, they're not quick enough to tell you thank you for and would you like to pass on thanks, blah blah blah, but they are quick enough to lambast the services and send the messages, complaints and stuff, but you don't get any of the positive stuff come back when it all goes quiet on the Western Front, so to speak. So there's a big thank you in there from a person on behalf of residents and shopkeepers in particular. My daughter works down there and she'll tell you, Dad, something's happened, and something indeed has. So I'd like to thank people for that.
That's great. Thank you very much, Councillor Whitehead. And you're obviously right in terms of people are very quick sometimes to go along with the negatives, but not necessarily quick enough when it comes to positives. So we do recognise that, and I'm sure the organisations will be happy to hear that feedback as well from today. If I bring in Reece, I really want to come back in.
Yeah, I just that's really, it is really good to say here, because I know the efforts we've got across the partnership. It's under the rules. I suppose it's just a couple of minutes. Jason said it far more well. So, specifically answering the question, we're data rich in some ways. We pre-state the local authority data. We've got it's readily available. The intelligence review does what the team do a lot with. So that's readily available. That's only part of the picture. And then last year we did the strategic needs assessment. We identified quite a lot of data gaps right across the piece. Hence the data center being set up to actually try and dig into some of that and get better data. So I think that's work in progress. But what we've actually done now is change the response process. So Jason talked about this. There's this problem orientated planning. So you identify the data about the victims and the perpetrators of the scenario, and you actually put a plan in place that specifically addresses those things based on the data that you've done, and then you can monitor the effectiveness of that. And that's in place across the piece. And obviously, antisocial behaviour is a priority area. When we spoke to the public before we wrote the plan, obviously it comes up in council a lot. A lot of the issues we have around antisocial behaviour around the city. That's a really critical issue for us. And also having a place-based approach, hence us having the safer places approach. Now, we piloted some of that work in the city centre at the Hill in the previous plan, because it was a safe city centre during the safe Hill plan group. And we've expanded that now, so we actually it's more flexible. You can incorporate other areas and you can move where it's needed. So I think it's really important to also recognise community safety partnerships responsibilities are to undertake this assessment, develop a plan and deliver that plan, and also be responsive to the issues happening in the communities on an ongoing basis. So it is the mechanism for triggering a response, such as when it comes to like that.
So I've got my pair of eyes, and compared with a year ago, city centre is a lot calmer with fewer incidents of antisocial behaviour. In my experience, that's great for the team. Congratulations to the team in actually bringing that about. What can we do to counter this idea that it's unsafe to go into the city centre?
I suppose there's a couple of bits. So that's really good to hear. Obviously, the city centre is one of our priority areas across the partnership. Policing. Jason will probably want to talk about the policing plan they've got for the city centre and the work we do with Newport Business Crime Partnership as well, the lifetime ambassadors, etc. So we've got a range of different activities going on. When we did the strategic needs assessment when it came to council, what you saw, and it was a debate in council, but what we saw then was a clear distinction between what the data was saying to us and public perception, not just for the city centre, on a range of different things. I think our approach from a partnership perspective is perception is as important as the data. So, it's really important that we respond where there's a fear of crime social media as well, and hence why we've got a variety of plans in place to do that. The way we make the change of perception is having, is continuing to put that effort in and actually highlighting the good things that are going on, and that's incumbent on all of us to do that. I'm not suggesting for a moment that I'm bitter that they've got problems, but actually there's a lot of work going on as well. There's a lot of good things going on as well. And there is a minority, a very, very small minority.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, I think you mentioned that you had a question on data.
Yeah, I
going back to what I think you said, back to the town centre, I mean, yeah, I've noticed there's been an increase in police around as well. So we meant to be thanked as well for working in partnership with everybody else, reduces it. One of the questions I had was, how is data being shared across agencies, especially in sensitive areas like domestic abuse and safeguarding?
Yeah.
So the data subgroup is really key to that, and how we kind of did say that, you know, we just said that with the first SNA we really struggled. We did just pretty much on police and LA, but because of the new structures now, because of the data group in particular, because they're smaller and they're focused, there's more of an opportunity for people to share data and share information. So on a you know, kind of higher level, we share data with each other. So as an example, we have the vulnerable groups subgroup today, so we talked on a higher level of, you know, what was the issues in relation to substance use in Newport, etc. So very much there, but then under each some of the subgroups we've got the operational meetings then, where actually, because they're under section 115 or, you know, different pieces of legislation, agencies have got the ability then to share kind of personal information about, you know, sorry.
So just that, so section 1.5 covers sort of that allows sharing of crimes, but it's the range of so it's a legal framework for us.
Yes. And it just enables people to be confident in knowing that they can share that kind of, you know, sensitive personal information without risk of it kind of being misused. Yes.
Said just now with regards to the women's group. One of the questions we can ask women, obviously the report to me as a woman outlines a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes. But how will a women's safety charter be developed and what outcomes are expected from its implementation?
I'll ask you to kind of, this is a little baby, show us the women's safety.
Yeah. So it's still in its formation, but I would say that in terms of partnership, and really key to what Janice just said about data sharing as well, in terms of our meetings, we don't meet if there's single agency present. We ensure that a partnership representation is there, so it is full partnership meetings we do. So we had a really significant appetite from partners to be involved in the Women's Safety Charter, as you can imagine. So we've discussed lots of different things in terms of consultation with public as we develop it, but key to Women's Safety Charter really across other areas that have done it like London, Bristol, Cardiff, is it being very publicly talked about and signage and posters, and it being it is about the public being aware that it's a kind of a joint agreement that this is how we are going to behave together, that this is what we deem in the city as acceptable behaviour to women. This is what we should all expect as residents of Newport, users of Newport, that we will be treated with respect and dignity. So that there's different ways we can do that publicly, but we've been talking about, how artistic Newport is. So when it comes to like launching it, involving the art community, the music community, but also in terms of sport, getting sporting teams on board in terms of really ensuring that that's not just part of nighttime economy, but it's part of general day-to-day life across Newport as well. So there's a variety of ways we're looking at doing that, but in terms of its development, it is going to be key to it being about partnership, but also engaging with the public in as many ways as we can with it. And ensuring that publicity is meaningful, that you don't want to be stood in front of a poster having to read lots of detail. We want it to be really recognisable. So design will come into a really big, I know it seems quite simplistic, but plays a really big part in that being recognisable. They'll see that poster, they'll know what it means. It is a reminder. And for example, I met with Active Travel last week about how can we make our active travel routes, ensure that they're safe for women to use by themselves as well, especially when we go into the winter season. How safe will women feel running or cycling by themselves? So it's about how we can apply that to various parts of life in Newport as well.
Brilliant, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. If I can bring in Councillor Bright, I think that your question about the perception and partnerships that way.
Well, I think Councillor Druitt and Davis stole my thunder there, really. Yeah, just to echo what Crispin said. Both my daughters work in the hospitality sector in the city centre, and and I have no worries about them being in that sector. And yeah, and just the perception, people outside Newport though, when we had the sea shanty event, I was in Potters on Sunday, saw a student I used to teach 10 years ago. I haven't seen you, and this, yeah, love it, it's great. I haven't seen you Potters before. Oh yeah, I'm coming in on Saturday. So there's still that perception there. But whilst my daughter's in Swansea, so I was keeping an eye on media in Swansea, Swansea, very similar sized cities. But we just seem to be kicking ourselves really in negative publicity. And then I was walking home from work today through Somerton, and a big billboard there, goals, RSPCA, and their latest thing says goals are lovers, not biters. I thought, blimey, seagulls are not very well received. So they managed to get this. They've got obviously some strategy there to promote, goals, if you like, in general. Just wonder, what can a partnership do to actually promote the good work you're doing? There's no question, it's excellent work going on here. And how can we enhance that and get that message across? No question.
If we get into the group, it's a really good question. If the partnership has an Achilles heel, is sending out good messages. I would say we talk about in every partnership, any regular partnership. There's a lot of really good stuff going on, and we're not brilliant. We're not brilliant saying across the partnership, and some of that is obviously really is justifiable. So, for instance, what we tend to, if there's an issue or incident, ourselves and other partners, we would tend to fall behind police comms. Police do that if there's an incident, an issue, crime, police do the comms, and we fall behind that. And that is reasonably straightforward. We're not very, and it is a development. We're not very good at saying, look, we've done all this really good stuff. And I think once we finalise this has gone through the political process, we do need to do some comms really around actually this is all the stuff the partnership has done, this is doing, and this is how you can get involved, and what perceptions are really important, and how do we change that. But it is, if we do some really, really good work, but we're not brilliant at the checks and content. Yeah.
Recently, Helen and the team, and the comms team, have worked on a kind of community safety campaign, if you like, together with our colleagues in public protection around what is it? What is antisocial behaviour? How do you report it? What do our wardens do? So there's been we've been trying to kind of put them out, kind of regularly, so that it stays in people's minds. And then we've got community safety, antisocial behaviour week next week. So there's quite a few bits that we're doing with partners to be able to get around it. But I think it's a constant drip feed, isn't it? I think that's the trouble. And Newport's one of those few areas where we kick ourselves down, rather than picking ourselves up. So yeah, some of that is about how we all have responsibility as well for improving the perception of Newport. Because we all know it's a great place to live. There's some great places to go, things to do. But sometimes we are all guilty of concentrating on the not so brilliant things. So I think it's challenging perception from a community perspective, but also from a personal and kind of community perspective as well.
I know there's colleagues as well, but if you forgive me for divulging just a tiny bit with, I know we've got data groups and things like that there. I just wonder, is there workings in the future for communication group to understand all the different corporate types of communication to come together, and about maybe some type of plan between you all to make sure that there's actually ways to get that message out better? I don't know if there's scope or ways of working into that regard.
Chair, can I just come in on that? So I sat on a meeting yesterday. The Home Office have asked all CSPs up and down the country to pull together what they call a Safer Streets Summer Initiative. So it's a 3-month period starting from July all the way through to the end of September, looking at addressing ASB, street crime and retail crime in each of the town centres within the areas. Now, obviously, Newport City Centre has been earmarked as one particular area. The meeting that we had yesterday, it's all very well addressing the ASB and the crime if we then don't promote the good work that the partnership do. And it's a cultural thing for me, and we've had it in Gwent where we are getting better, where we will always have adverse publicity from time to time around the behaviour, unfortunately, of some officers. But in the intervening months, we try and encourage people to just flood the market with the good news stories. What we need to do now is to make sure we flood the market through a partnership approach to all the good stuff that we're doing. You know, so all the stuff that we've talked about today and beyond today, of all the intervention and all the partnership initiatives that we're doing, we need to get far better through one platform where we get all of that out to the public to change that perception. And it's about tackling the issues that are really relevant and local to people living and working here, not necessarily the big ticket items that we all talk about in the national news. Is what really affects people locally, is what really deeply matters to them. An ASB and low level crime is exactly that, and that's what I think we need to do. But now from yesterday's meeting, there is going to be a comms group that's going to be put together specifically for each of the 5 CSPs, obviously with Newport being one of those. So perhaps that's something Greece and others we can then jump on the back of to see what we can do outside of that 3-month period around how we get our ducks in order to improve that.
Thank you for the intervention, and that's really positive to hear. And I think you had.
Yeah, just to add to Jason's, we've actually already myself and Matthew Quidlan from Public Protection, we've already got a meeting established for next week with Kate, who manages the communications team here, to look at how we can have an effective comm strategy around this, because what we're seeing out of Safer Places, in particular in the planning and problem solving, is we are doing a lot better. This is a brilliant example of that kind of coming together, and we're quite quiet about it, and we need to be louder about it. So how can we be louder about it? I think we get a little bit scared sometimes as well of kind of putting something out in the public, and then we all know what the comment sections can be like, and that does affect them public perception as well. But we do need to be growing about it a bit more loudly. So that is between what Jason has just said about the summer programme, which we've already got a plan in place for, and then also looking at it more broadly. I think it's definitely something we need to add.
Sure, that's brilliant. Thank you. And I know you're coming in.
I just wonder whether this is a question of finance. You get your finance from also the different grants.
Yeah.
Is finance an issue in this regard?
I'm not really sure. It's finance is always an issue, isn't it? For the more resource will always be better. I think it's having said that, you know, they are comms actively. I think it is a cultural thing around, you know, I suppose a bit of self-consciousness around good news stories, but you know, we've got some opportunities, I think, with this program. Starting to be picked up.
Really interesting what Alice talking about promoting sport and what Council Wright saying what happens in Swansea. Yeah, and those novel approaches are, I think, really good.
Great, thank you, Councillor Druitt. On the list next, I've got Councillor Peterson. You had a point I think you want to bring.
Yeah, it's like with the perception, I think Operation Alley had a brilliant piece of media with that drone footage of chasing the zoo rod. I had multiple people come up, not realising the police had that sort of technology out there. And I think there's a huge area for technology to be used. People talk about the old days of the Bobby walk in the street. These drones are able to be used for antisocial behaviour, so like with the shoe runs. And when you put that into it, it went viral. It's like because people was sucked into it, and that was a good news story. And I think it also helps prevent crime, because if the culprits can't see that they're being surveillance on, knowing that they're not on for taking them activities as well. So I think it's a longer term background to it, but it's also a good communication by releasing them videos out to the public to say, look, we are enforcing, and it's a new type of enforcement.
Thank you for that. And it's interesting also the new technologies as it comes in and about how it moves forward. I'm sure we'll receive updates about new technologies as and when they come into the possibility there. Thank you for waiting as well, Councillor Hussain. I've got you noted as the next point of question.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd just like to, congratulate and say for Newport on the report. It was, very a good report for the past progress that you've made for the past year, and the commitment in, tackling serious and violent crimes, antisocial behaviour, and supporting vulnerable groups. Is you can see that throughout there. You can read it throughout the report. Talking about vulnerable groups, I just like to know, any feedback that you gather from underrepresented groups, from such as the diverse communities, young people, and also from people with disabilities. How is that feedback acted upon, and is it like used in decision-making processes for the future?
So some of the feedback we use with our fairness and equality impact assessments, so particularly looking at those kind of less vocal, if you like, elements of our kind of communities and the more vulnerable. So yeah, our FEAs help inform all of our decisions, and particularly looking at those protected characteristics and people that we can kind of talk to. But when we did the perception surveys, we try and break that down so we've got more of an idea. And the hate crime group that we're just about to set up now will have a clear focus on, where those differences are. Where's the issues for our disabled residents? Where's the issues for our kind of more diverse areas, etc. And that will inform the rest of the work. But we're still at the early stages of that at the moment.
Thank you.
What I would say on top of that is that we have a weekly tension monitoring group within the force at the moment. And that is extended then to the community cohesion officers in Monmouthshire and Newport. So I'm talking the likes of Steph Blakemore and others, but also our independent advisory group members as well and key stakeholders. So in terms of underrepresented groups, there's a real opportunity on the platform there for people to raise concerns. And then we can then go back as a partnership or as a force to look at addressing those concerns and obviously feed that then back to the communities through those representatives. A really good example, I think, was last year following the Southport incident and the real misinformation that was circulating within Gwent and particularly Newport, particularly around the Muslim communities. I think we were really quick to act in pulling those mosque meetings together. And we are the only force in Wales that have those types of meetings in existence as well. So and it's something that obviously clearly we're going to continue to make sure we keep building on those relations as well. So there's a lot that we're doing, and obviously both the local authority and the police have got their EDI teams as well that are really linked into the communities and reps.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that we also get really good feedback from Inspector Giles. We get a monthly update meeting with him, so he's always updating on us on all the operations and the successful work that's being done. So I'd also like to say that as well. I mean, with the police, I think a lot of the operations and the successful operations and things that are being done, it is widely publicised on their social media platforms. But I think with Newport City Council, it's not so much with especially about reducing crime and all of that stuff is all on. But any safety improvements, I think we need to maybe put that up as well, advertise that a bit more as well on whatever platforms you can, from Newport City Council. That would be like some of the other panel members were saying.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hussain. And I believe Reece wants to come in there.
Yeah, I think what Councillor Hussain just said there, I was on how it's doing work with the comms team around that is working for us. Starting to see some stuff. On the I suppose the communication stuff. I was going to say what Jason ended up saying, essentially, you know, the local authority has got to connect the communities to where police have got communication. This police detention monitoring really closely linked to a lot of the communities, these more vulnerable communities across the city. Here's a quick response when there are specific issues.
That's great, and it's interesting, obviously, between yourselves seeing each other thunder, which actually shows good partnership as well. So it's kind of good to have that feeling within the room of it, definitely. For sure.
That's fun.
So, so thank you for that. I do see Councillor Whitehead, you have a point, but can I just double check it's still with the community side of things?
Just a quick one before. Well, I may well have to shoot shortly. I think James touched on Operation Harley. I made a phone call around that the other week, and there was a blip in the system with the 101. This might be an aside, where I requested a call back, and there was difficulty because the unknown number scenario. So there was a bit chaos over that, and that was about people literally tearing up outside St David's Hospice, which really, I can't tell you how angry I got there. There's people taking their last breath and being tormented outside, families, you know. So that's a different thing, but 101 and whatnot, that needs looking at. But for me, this is quite a biggie. On Betty's last week, we had a YouTuber visit us. I filled me with horror, actually, and he seemed to look for the dregs, then, so to speak, and it wasn't I watched it because I felt I had to. Made sure I distanced myself, but I did watch it, and the theme coming from, he particularly targeted the youngsters. They were shop boys, and I think my point that they made, which is probably interesting, they were lamenting the fact of lack of youth clubs and stuff, and we all have to admit that there has been a drawback on youth provision, and I've always felt that has had an impact on ASB. Gone are the days where kids play ping pong and pool. It's a more modern society with more modern things, and I'm just thinking that provision, when it was drawn back, I mean, I know we got a bit of a system in our local community centre, but they poo-pooed that to this guy, how rubbish it was, etc. But are we listening to the youth, so the partnership? Are they listening to the youth voices when they say that the youth provision is not what it was? And it doesn't seem that these guys are nomadic and they're wandering around, and it's not all about that, because I didn't have to go to youth clubs to behave, but this is listening to these kids. A lot of that was what they were saying, but and just to be mindful, I don't know whether Jason's heard of that there is some chap going around. He's Pill, I think he's going to Pill next. He's been to Dufferin. He wants to go to Ringland or Alway, I believe. But he's also going to revisit us. It's kind of fills me with trepidation. He was in the pub, and he seemed to be looking for the bad points to highlight, so to speak, and he's getting a lot of views on YouTube. So I'm just making people mindful of that as well.
Unfortunately, it seems to be the case that that's happening up and down the country with lots and lots of YouTubers. We had one in Newport several months ago. I'm not sure if it's the same gent, but this guy was a Liverpudlian, started off in Maindy.
Billy, that's another one, yeah.
Went over to Pill and then down to Dufferin, I think, as well. But it is part and parcel. And again, it's the type of individuals that they're interviewing. And again, as you said, it's
he's seeking them out, isn't he?
Of course he is. And
what's disappointing is this chap, he's from Cardiff, and I was very disappointed to hear him say that he used to work for Kaleidoscope, and I'm like, really? Well, you should have more about you than, you know, because the talk, unfortunately, and you grit your teeth to watch it, he was pointing people more and more to the immigration issues, and there was good people on there that he was trying, and it really made me squirm in my seat, albeit it's like playing with a loose tooth. I felt I had to watch it in its, you know, to its completion, but it wasn't good viewing, and I just like people to be mindful of that. I think it's Alway next. He wants to go Ampill like that Scouser did.
Thank you, and I believe recently you want to come on the back of that.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, just some interesting points, and that those sorts of people are it. You know, it's to get clickbait on YouTube, isn't it? And there's very little you can actually do that. What the knowledge is balance of what areas, like, and there are all series of them on.
Can I also just finish, Chair, because it looks like I will be going shortly. And to that, I don't know whether the councillor's experience is, but I have responded in a negative way to Channel 5, HTV, the BBC. Various people have contacted me via email to come onto this estate. And, you know, obviously I'm not taking the bait, because I suppose a lot of us might remember that the poor, unfortunate woman called White D, which she was made infamous a few years ago. And that's the type of thing that these people want. All they want to do is to look at the bad aspects of the estate, highlight it, cause the drama, and off they go into the distance. So I just like people to be mindful of that has happened to me. Channel 5, Sky News was was it Sky News was another one, and all of them I blocked via my email. But they are out there and they're looking for the negatives. And it's our job, like I did, to say there's lots to live. But you've seen it. We've been on Wales Online. They've filmed some people unfortunate, and it's our job really to champion I live where we live. I love Newport. There's a lot of negativity about Newport. I wrote passionately about the corporate plan and stuff. I mean, there's good people trying to do good things, and I think there's far too much negativity. It's my dirty old town. I love Newport, and people are trying. And on that note, I think you know, let's all champion where we're from.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. If I can bring in Reece.
Yeah, so I suppose the other bit of that question was around, I suppose, more sort of youth provision stuff. So just a couple of bits of that. So a few years ago, council agreed a new structure within the council, which created a new service area, prevention and inclusion. And the youth service now lives within that, with a range of other services such as play, families first, etc., etc. So that new service was created, and what we've seen since that point is, I suppose, a redevelopment and rebirth of youth provision, which was probably a little scant up until that point. Speaking to the head of service last week, obviously she's looking at redevelopment of services, more sort of community based. And actually, because of the issues we've had in Venice, and we took a contextual safeguarding approach to the Venice estate, which is looking at that people in place perspective, is actually looking to relocate youth and community and play and some other provisions within the community itself. So that is, I think, a model we're looking to implement and then evaluate and see the benefits of that. Jason's a real advocate for these sort of multi-agency hubs as well, so we'll be looking to do that elsewhere in the city also.
I'm hoping so. I mean, myself and my colleague Jan Club, we were talking the other day, and when Jan was running the youth club out here, believe it or not, we had up to 80 children attending that, and it's just and since the drawback, it's one of the things she does lament.
Yeah, get that. Thank you, Councillor Whitehead, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Chair.
It was just to say, Councillor Whitehead, on the back of kind of what we said around increasing youth provision. The youth and play team are very much part of our structure as well, and we utilise their views on an ongoing basis. They're going to form a really key part of that Safer Streets Summer initiative in the city centre as well. But also taking in the views of young people. We have Newport Live that are very present in our meetings as well, and they're always feeding back kind of what the young people are saying, the issues young people are dealing with. So we are really cognizant of the fact that young people's views really matter, and how important it is to ensure that they see a hope and a future in Newport as well. But myself and Janice did watch part of that video earlier on today. And all I would say is, yes, the youth club was there, but unfortunately the youth club did have to close down several nights because of disorder in the area. So it's a difficult one really to balance out there, and I'm sure that the youth and play team would love that sort of rhetoric around it. But yeah, they are, the youth and play team in particular, are really key to future plans.
Thank you. And if I can bring
Thank
in
you.
Just a comment, Chair. There are positive YouTubers out there, and John H is one who presents really positive images of Newport and the activities of Newport, and the more that we can do to present Newport in a positive light, better.
That's great. Thank you, Councillor Druitt. I see Councillor Harvey's been very patient there. Thank you very much. If you want to come in, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a few comments I want to make. Going back to Councillor what Hussein said, is when the police advertise it in our ward, we always get very good results, and they're very happy with what the police are doing. And to touch on what Councillor Whitehead is saying, bad news travels fast. So if the police are putting it out, maybe we should be skywriting it, even if it's a little, gain. Just skywrite it to start counteracting all this negativity we're having all the time. Because when the police advertise what they've done, we always get a lot of good response from the public. So they're there and they want to help. It's just, if we're showing what we're doing as well as what the police are doing, I think we get a better response right across the board.
Can I just say on that, before I definitely have to go this time, I would agree with you, Tim, but I run Bettis News, which had a membership of £12,000 members. Bearing in mind, we all know the demographic of Bettis. Literally, there's 7,600 people. But I digress. You put things on there regarding the police and the mud that's slung, and sometimes I really don't like that, because I'm a champion of the police. And sometimes people take a I put the police on there, guarantee you, I know the police monitor the police, they'll see it for themselves, and they have told me that the negativity, you get the odd nice person that gets it, and they'll defend the police, but sometimes I'm quite shocked and disappointed that some of the things that does get said about the police, and I don't enjoy that. And then obviously I'm deleting stuff, and I think, why did I put that on there? And I shouldn't have to be like that in this modern times. We should be saying, like, well, look, the police are there to serve and protect, and they do their best. We've already championed the fact that antisocial behaviour on Bettis, and my fingers are so tightly crossed, it's the best it's been for a long time. But people won't come forward and tell you that, but they'll moan when it's kicking off, and things like that bother me, because like I say, I'll always be a champion of the police.
What I'm saying, Kevin, is us as councillors and this committee should be advertising ourselves more, if you get what I mean. As well as the police doing it, we should be doing it besides.
Always do, Tim.
Thank you, Kevin.
Did you have any further points there, Councillor Harvey?
No, that I did have questions, but they've all seemed to be asked, so I'm happy with that. Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you. I think it's just important, obviously, to remind ourselves within the partnership scope, but for obviously as councillors and elected members, just about making sure that if there is instances, to make sure that we're holding up by the data side and make sure they get reported. As we said, things like antisocial behaviour, it goes underreported. It's probably because it's so minor, inverted commas, but people, it's whatever instances that happen, to try and go out into our communities to remind people to get that information in, because it does help, obviously, with the plans and priorities moving forward. So I think that's a reflection on us to move forward on that. I do have, Bev, I think you want, sorry, Councillor Davis, you want to bring in about the wider voice in the population. I don't know if you still want to note your question there.
I will add a bit about what everybody has said with regards to everybody comes down hard on Newport. We always said, Councillor Harvey said, bad news travels faster. And I think I can see your point in the fact that you're a bit afraid to be vote, but no, it's every good thing that is being done in the city in whatever way and whatever subject should be shouted on the rooftops, because people need to know that good things happen. And I'm just not disappointed, but I'm sad at the fact that we're not doing that. But going on that, I just want to know what engagement you have with the people of Newport with regards to how safe they feel, what they'd like to see happen. Are there any engagement with regards to that?
Yeah, there are several different ways. There's a regular things that go out on best Wi-Fi, which often will put in kind of perceptions on how people feel. Sometimes that's particular to city centre. So we've had recent feedback on that. But also, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think an ASB impact assessment that we're looking to complete. It's all community focused. So as a team, we're going out, and next week's really busy for that because it's ASB week. We're able to be present at lots of different events. So it is about sitting with the community and asking them, what does life look like for you? Is ASB a concern of yours? Is it not? You know, how do you perceive your local area? Does it matter to you? Those sorts of questions, but not so much ticking and answering those questions, just having conversations with people. And we've got a full programme of that planned out through the summer activities, of which there's lots of community work and food festival. So right up to the end of October, we plan on doing significant community engagement on that, plus online participation through surveys plus Wi-Fi and different aspects there as well. So equally, as elected members, if you've got anything coming up that you think, oh, it'd be great, you can come along to that, have conversations with members of the public, please let us know. We will be at anything we can, but we really are keen to capture as much of that information and engagement. And again, with the Women's Safety Charter, that'll be part of that as well. So over this year especially, we've got a lot that we can kind of interact.
Yeah, and yourselves the booster on what you're achieving yourselves and what the partnership is, because it's working. We just need to tell people out there what it is and how much it's working. Give yourselves a pat on the back.
Thank you. I can see Jason wants to come in on the back of the question as well. Jason.
So two things really. I think we talked about the CSB and the need perhaps for a comms group and stuff like that. What we started doing in Gwent is populating a diary, a calendar, so that all of the 9 sections throughout Gwent, the neighbourhood teams, put in advance all their activities, their operations, their warrants, etc. So our comms team, knowing exactly in advance, and can plan ahead. So if they want to get ITN, ITV, BBC, Argus, etc., they can then plan that in advance, so we can then really hit it hard and wide. So that's one thing that we could look at. I think the biggest game changer for us, I think, as a force in the next month or so, is the introduction of our new messaging alert system. So without going into any fine detail, because I know we've talked about this already in council, but essentially what the messaging alert system will allow is that officers will engage with people at very much postcode street level to understand and identify what the local issues are with them. And then from that, they will then create automated surveys to identify when these issues are taking place. And then when we then commit to that activity and then we put those updates to them, what we can also do is include WhatsApp groups, local Facebook groups, partners groups, websites, so we can maximize the net, I suppose, in terms of trying to get it to as many people as we can. And that's around just local issues rather than the big issues, as I said, the big ticket items that we normally look at. So it's very much a two-way system, and it's very good. What is also good is that it's a database. There's 2 databases that sit behind this system, which have got a real breakdown of ethnic heritage, so we can do very targeted engagement to certain ethnic groups, to certain areas within Newport. As an example, we can look at retail, so we can have a bespoke group around retailers within the city centre that we can then send out crime prevention messages to. Arguably, we could do one for councillors in terms of a generic one. So we can, there's lots and lots of things that we can do with it, and we're looking to soft launch it now in the next coming weeks. So we're going to be publicising very shortly around what we can do with it, and I think it'll be a game changer. I think out of the 43 forces in the UK, over 30 are using it to really good effect, and has improved trust and confidence immeasurably in those areas.
Thanks for that, Jason. One thing I do get from that, I believe, is basically councillors do receive correspondence from ITN or ITV these days, Channel 4, Channel 5, or anyone like that there. I assume it's best to send it into yourselves, so at least at a community cohesion level, we know that something's on its way and coming in, rather than storing it, even if we don't respond, but just to let you know that something's there.
Yeah. Not necessarily Janice and Helen. I think it goes to corporate PR.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
that mailbox is monitored 24/7. So
maybe that's something we can put in there just to remind colleagues that that's there to support just for that communication side of things. But yeah, thank you for that. I do have Councillor Druitt want to ask a question in relation to domestic homicide review. Do you want to come into that, Councillor?
Yeah, before I ask that, how this is about domestic violence. How confident are you that rich social landlords play an effective part in reducing domestic violence?
So I used to work for a registered social landlord, so I'll declare a little bit of interest in there, but I know how much work they do. So particularly for our kind of registered social landlords are really engaged in this agenda. They've been doing it before, you know, kind of not before anybody else, but they always used to be part of a central telephone call. There used to be a daily call that used to happen, and they've got lots of kind of support elements that they can do through their own kind of, you know, how they house people. So Poggle, as an example, they've got a particular scheme in which they house women who've been kind of, you know, had to move out, etc., making sure that they're working with those. So there's some support workers dedicated in each of our local registered social landlords that work specifically with people who are experiencing or have experienced domestic abuse. There's also really good kind of communication around all of their teams. So as an example, if you've got somebody that does repairs and they're going into the same property and seeing, you know, kind of holes in walls or, you know, things like that, they then report back, and they're very engaged in our duty to report kind of process as well. So really confident in our registered social landlords. We need to do more in relation to our private landlords. From the registered social landlords, I think they are vital in our area in supporting and kind of, you know, addressing domestic abuse.
And moving on to the domestic homicide review. These take, I understand, a long time to finalise. And how effective are they in the end in reducing domestic homicide?
should we start? That's a $1 million question.
That's what we all do.
So the process is changing at the moment. So current the legislation's not changing. The process is changing. So previously, when police if there was a homicide and when police felt that was a domestic homicide, there didn't have to be any sort of sexual relationship where, you know, people cohabiting in the same location. They refer that to the community safety partnership, and it's up to the community safety partnership then to determine whether they undertake a domestic homicide review. So when police will write to myself through the partnership relationship, because obviously when police are on the partnership, they write to the partnership. We determine to undertake a domestic homicide review. I'm not aware within sort of 7 or 8 years I've been chairing the community safety partnership that we declined to undertake a domestic homicide review. And unfortunately, we might undertake a number of domestic homicide reviews in that period of time. Process is now changing with this single unified safeguarding review, which is more in line with general safeguarding practice. But the process currently is that you undertake the review, a report is written, lessons are learned. It's not part of the blaming process. It's not trying to find accountability. It's about finding opportunities for partners and agencies to learn lessons in order to mitigate those risks in the future. And that's then sent off to the Home Office, and the Home Office then quality assure it, and then often return it to us for us to undertake further work on it and change and adapt. But it takes some time. It does take some significant time to get from the unfortunate incident where somebody's lost their lives to the point where we are publishing findings of domestic homicide. That, you know, it takes years to get from that point to that point. And part of it has to do with the fact there's often a court case involved, and once you can do some work, you can't actually do quite a lot of work. the requirement to engage with the family, the perpetrator, the agencies. So it's a very involved process. I suppose it's a very subjective question. So, locally, we've undertaken a number of partners been fully engaged with them. We've unfortunately signed off two in recent months that are now with the Home Office. Whilst locally we can determine actually the lessons learned and actually how we get that practice locally, the national repository, it's a very subjective question concerning whether that's a huge on agencies across England. But certainly locally, we very much we are the actions associated with those domestic and segregated, and we monitor the implementation of those actions across those agencies. So locally, it's pretty confident. Nationally, I think to take you have to form your own judgment.
Anything to add to that is the reassurance that even though the report might take a long time to get to publication, actually we have regular panel meetings throughout that process with key agencies, and the learning is happening and changes are being made throughout that process. So as a partnership, we don't wait for the report before we start implementing those lessons learned. So already, from sometimes from day one of the panel, the first panel meeting, we're already addressing all of this more training on that, or we can look at a system to do that. So yeah, even though it might take a long time, actually the learning doesn't, and the kind of the work doesn't take that long. That's almost kind of instantaneous.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions from the room or online that I can see? Slides. Okay, thank you. Just a couple of questions to conclude. For me, the majority of them have actually been done, which is positive. I suppose it's just kind of the kind of testing the water with the partnerships for these two of them. So first one is, what happens when something's not working? Is there a clear way for the partnership to spot it early and shift gear without losing momentum or support? Just kind of recognition to see how the structures are.
It's a mature partnership, you could say. It's really action and outcome focused. It is not without its bumps in the road. I think Jason will probably echo this, and Councillor Whitehead's mentioned better. So I think we had some challenging partnership conversations about activities in Betis and how we will tackle those. That's really healthy, I think. The chairs and the subgroups have their own chairs meeting where they talk about the issues they're dealing with within those areas of work, and that's fed in there. So that's independent of myself and Jason's chairs in the partnership. But any of those issues are brought forward to the partnership. Community safety partnership meetings are not, I have said this in previous meetings, they're not show and tell. Don't need a long story of the amazing things that we've done. That's really, really good. Actually, what we're here to, you've got resource in the room, what problems we're trying to solve together. So I feel as chair, I hope Jason would echo that. I feel confident issues will be identified and they will be escalated, and they will be dealt with in the way that we have dealt with them.
Yeah, just to add to that, and one of the key mechanisms of that is the delivery plan. That is one of the appendices here, and you'll see on there that we kind of RAG rate it as well, so that we can flag that with Safe for Newport in terms of, okay, this is an area where actually we've stalled or there's not been enough progress, and we'll update that, and that's what holds us to account. That's what helps us to understand that actually there's a blockage here, this isn't working, do we need to pivot, do we need to move on? And that'll be then up to the partnership to decide, yes, we agree that actually time's moved on, let's move on from that, or no, let's extend that time scale. So that document really holds the subgroups to account, but also allows Safe for Newport to have all the information to make a decision.
Thank you. And when you said about bumps in the road, would you be able to define what type of challenge that would be to be a bump in the road, right? To understand within that partnership what would be deemed a challenge, but to overcome it at the same time?
I've got examples, but I would just say there'll be a problem. What you're looking at are very different agencies. We've got different functions, and our way of looking at those problems is often very, very different. So, you know, there are challenges sometimes around actually how you deploy your partnership resource based on that particular problem. And I think it's that sort of. It's not. I don't see any issues really with lack of accountability, but the approach, and that when you go into that problem solving process. So, for instance, if you look at like contextual safeguarding, you know, and I, you know, to put my hat on as chair of the Justice Board. We're talking about children and young people. We, you know, from a social services point of view, we're treating them as children and young people and trying to put a supportive package in place in order to do them, whilst they're also potentially undertaking criminal activity. And there's a particular process involved in that as well. So, you know, it's trying to find mechanism which actually resolves the problem, meets the community needs, and also as individual needs as well. So, and, you know, that's those sort of challenging conversations.
I don't know, it just has that context, obviously, to the committee as well, to understand that scope of what actually is being done on that side. So rather than, you know, the kind of challenges of arguments, it's not arguments, it's more about, as you said, about deployments and about how you implement certain work together, which is the positive side. It's interesting on that challenge. I suppose the back often, which was one of my other questions, do we feel that we have the right partners in, and do we need any more potentially on that site? And is there anything that we could potentially do to assist within, you know, that scope?
I think we're really lucky with our partners. Even the statutory partners are really strong, as Reece said. But in the smaller subgroups, sometimes it gives us the opportunity to put in the smaller community groups that really kind of, you know, that have got that information on the ground and can kind of help us operationally. So I think that the way that the structure is set up now, there's different organisations at different levels, or different representations at different organisations at different levels. That means that we've got kind of, you know, that wide view and the ability to kind of, you know, be flexible and adaptable to meet those individual needs. So,
yeah, I did just an example of that. You know, 2 months ago there was a ceremony with the chair of the Justice Board for Wales, 11 in the playing field. That's a youth justice service, initiative the youth service. Newport Lives Through Possible Futures, Newport DMD Community Association, Rachel other partners actually diversion activities, giving young people other things to do, role models, you know, that there's some really strong grassroots.
So just to add to what Jan was saying there as well, in terms of those subgroups, we do have a really flexible membership. So sometimes you'll have a conversation with someone else from a different department and you go, oh my gosh, you need to come to this meeting. So we invite them in. So we make sure that that membership is constantly flowing with those that have relevant input to put into it, or a keen sense of what's going on the ground. And, you know, our vulnerable group subgroup today was a perfect example of that. And then another group grew out of it. So there is a lot of flexibility in that.
You said about the kind of like Newport Yemeni Association, things like that. There, is there any like sports groups? I know we spoke earlier about various things, but is there any like sports teams? I know we've got Newport Live and things like that on there. Is there any like individual things that scoping to maybe encourage them to get involved, but also to engage and see? I'm assuming like probably counting the community and stuff like that.
Yeah,
engaged
and we've recently pulled counting the community into our ASB subgroup, and that's been really useful in terms of what they're able to feed in, and data they're able to provide as well. They've offered up data in terms of who they work with, when they work with them, to build up a picture of what's available. So we have recently brought them in.
And hopefully the same with rugby and obviously other sports on that side, because it's their contacts which are going to be different, but also for the discussions that we have, especially about you know, things against women and things, obviously that would be a positive way to move forward with those. So I appreciate that answer. I suppose the last one for me, just before I quickly do it, just a check round one bit with the committee. I suppose just some of the risks are now online. So we talked about Facebook, we talked about comments. So just about the cyberbullying to digital exploitation, how is the partnership able to adapt to these modern threats that don't necessarily show up within the stats?
Yeah, that's a That's a good question. So we, between ourselves and Blynyddol colleagues, we do quite a lot of online monitoring. So that the social media side. But quite often it'll get raised at the partnership before actually somebody puts in a complaint. There's a lot of that work is undertaken. As a local authority, and we're pleased to say we run a lot of complaints as well around cybercrime. So people being targeted through that. So those are active. You know, if you look at our priority list of things, the priority list of work we've got across the really place-based activities. But that doesn't mean we're not doing other things as well.
Especially with like education and things like that there, because obviously of the way it is, unfortunately, we can't see what young people have because it's all on their phones. You know, it's
so you know, interesting. So the information governance annual report that's coming to Open Scrutiny tomorrow. It isn't totally specific, but in that framework, obviously we've got a lot of protective measures in place within that school environment to ensure are protected within that, and obviously schools do a lot of training within people about being safe online as well. So obviously prevention is much better in those circumstances than trying to rectify it.
Thank you, Mr. Badley. I do a round robin on the room. Is there any comments or anything further that you wish to raise, Councillor Davis? No, Councillor Jewett, Councillor Bright, Peterson, no. Councillor Hussain, anything from you?
No, thank you, Chair.
No, it's at all. And from Councillor Harvey?
No, thank you, Chair.
No, and just a double check there, Councillor Whitehead, if you're still there. No, that's fine. Okay. No, many thanks. I think if we move to the recommendations, etc., there and comments there, and pass to Neil, that's okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. Some of the notes that came down, Councillor Peterson's comment earlier, we were able to promote more feedback from the partners to see how the partnership is working, and we able to provide information of agencies from responding to the surveys. General comments, I can see it's been a lot calm in a few instances, and congratulations to the team bringing that about and praising the positive news in the report itself. Councillor Bright's comments about perception of Newport, what can partnership do to promote the partnership, the good work being done, how we can enhance and get this message across. Even though it was commented by officers, just a general comment about the good things that we're doing. Other than that, Chair, was there anything else the committee would like to make in regards to recommendations? This is the report.
No, I think so. From the room, the feeling that's a very substantial, good report. Appreciative, obviously, of the hard work there. By the sound, as you probably get from colleagues today, you know, notes from the actual policing in town, things like that there. So there's a perception of getting better, and a really good partnership, obviously. No, I would ask whether or not you and Jason would be able to finish off each other's sentences. That would be interesting one. You're close enough out in between the thunder and stuff like that there, so there's that scope as well. And it's really positive to see that in action, so I do appreciate that, and for your time today. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks all the team.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, and very briefly, if I can go on to the scrutiny advisory reports, right now, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just to advise the committee, the scrutiny team have been looking into the way that we and get feedback from service areas. So what we've done with the action and monitoring tables now, we've given a status such as complete, ongoing, outstanding. So when we do give recommendations from the committee to the service areas, we know what exactly is going to be done about it, whether they take on board what we've recommended or our comments. If they're not, what was the reason why? We can also tag whether it's an outstanding issue as well and what they intend on doing, stuff like that. So just to give updates on the fostering update and adoption services update when we met in April, all queries which were made are complete. And what we're going to do in the future editions as well is include the date that we actually received the feedback back. So how timely we received this back as well. We've got the draft annual forward workflow programme from the committee from June to May next year. We've done today's meeting, and the next meeting we'll have is on the 16th of July at 5 o'clock. This will be the Ground Substance Misuse Service. This came last year for the first time. Who were involved in it, we recommended for more information to be included in this year's report. So we should have more details for that now. The next meeting will be in September. That'll be the Waste Savers Partnership update, and also we'll be looking at the PSPO for dog control as well. A lot of the agenda items that are coming are regular ones that we see every year, such as SRS update, the Gwent Regional Partnership for an annual report. We'll have one Newport annual report as well as the Norse performance review as well. We'll have Newport live back in November as well. In December, we've got violence against women, and we'll have another mid-year update on the Safe Newport Community Safety Partnership. We have slots free available in February and March in case anything arises from the committee. Then the last meeting of the year is 29th of April, where we have the adoption service and the fostering service update. But what's included at the moment, those two meetings, the committee are free to request agenda items or reports as long as it falls within the terms of reference of the committee, and also whether we are able to add any value to it. But basically,
no, that's fine. I can open up, and I know colleague Councillor Drew, if you want to come in.
Yeah, I just want to say that climate change is a feature of this scrutiny committee, and how is the committee going to ensure that effective and timely interventions are put in place to combat climate change without proper scrutiny, if you like, of Natural Resources Wales?
We've got one Newport annual report coming in October's meeting. What we normally we have various intervention leads. We normally have one for the RSLs. We have one for greener spaces as well, which the falls under there as well. So we should be able to invite a rep from Natural Resources, whereas maybe Steve normally comes for that. So we can get some more things on that. Climate change but also falls in the annual report, which comes from, or it comes from the place of but get some more information on that.
Any particular points that you want on there at all, Councillor Drew, just to kind of find out if it'll be covered in that report, or if there's anything additional?
Yeah, I mean, just to a different aspect of our responsibilities tonight, but wondering about climate change in particular.
To keep an eye out for that, and also any questions in the meantime, and that's open to the committee. Please also advise us, because it's some things that we can preempt if it needs be, to suggest that there are questions coming up as part of that, which we can feed in. Is there any other points that committee members wish to note? No. I have suggested for maybe some of the bigger ones, if members are content to meet on a Monday before the meeting, just to go over some of the items to make sure, especially with the heavier reports, to make sure that we all got the points raised, that we go into the meeting and we have a little bit more of a structure going into them, because sometimes those meetings can be very long, so it's just to try to smooth that out. But that's just open to colleagues if they wish to, as a suggestion moving forward, just with knowledge and experience of the past, where sometimes it can be 3-4 hours long on the night, whereas if we do some preemptive work, hopefully we know when we've got a bit more focus, and it can be a bit quicker on the session, if that's happy with colleagues. Yeah, okay, brilliant.
As
That would be a good idea on an ad hoc basis, you know, because like today the report was quite short. So that wouldn't have been needed, whereas it was a really long report, then I think that'd be a good idea.
on particular Mondays, is there any particular time that the committee would like to meet around? We can do this as a Teams only once it allows, and everyone would be able to join.
Yeah, that's what I would suggest. Like if it gets teams, I don't think is that you need to actually come in. If we're just all.
Yeah, it's just going to be on Teams. Yeah, it's evenings or mornings.
Can I just, I just wanted to ask, would that be in addition to like the pre-meeting we have before the meeting itself?
It would be. It's just more of a kind of focus to understand what people are focusing into. So rather than the meetings going for quite a while, you know, as much as we like the engagement, it's just more the fact of if there's a bit more focus, we already have that notion that we know where we're going with that meeting, rather than kind of making it up on night.
And is that optional? Like, say for example, I sometimes work in the evenings. If I'm not able to attend, is that okay on the Monday? But I can still do the half an hour before the 5 o'clock.
Yeah, for sure. It's just an option extra because sometimes there's bits of reports and sometimes people wish to maybe clarify things and stuff like that there. So rather than seeking clarifications within the meeting, we can have that preemptively and then we come in with that understanding and focus in maybe other areas or the main part of the report.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you very much, Cassie. So that's on that side. I will ask for members to stay after the live just for a quick question. I will do it after the live side of things there. But before we go on to that, we do have the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I see a hand to approve those that was here for that last meeting? Thank you. And for those to second. I'm happy to second on that side. I know the thing, but that's fine. I'm happy to say and Cassie saying thank you. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this evening. So thank you very much for attendance. Again, I will speak to colleagues after that live bit when it's finished, but thank you for attending.